देवदेवो जनार्दनः दुरापाहि अल्पतपसः सेवा वैकुण्ठवात्मसु यत्रोपगीयते नित्यं देवदेवो जनार्दनः. Would anyone like to repeat? Mataji's. Yatropagiyate nityam Devadevo Janardanaha. Durapa, rarely obtainable. He, certainly, Alpa Tapasaha, of one whose austerity is meager. Seva, service, Vaikuntha, in the transcendental kingdom of God. Vadmasu, on the path of. Yatra, wherein. Upagiyate, is glorified. Nityam, always. Deva, of the demigods. Devaha, the Lord. Jana Ardhanaha, the controller of the living entities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. Please hear the purport. The path of liberation, as recommended by all authorities, is to serve the Mahatma Transcendentalists. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Mahatmas are the pure devotees who are on the path to Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, and who always chant and hear the glories of the Lord, rather than talk of dry, profitless philosophy. This system of association has been recommended since time immemorial, but in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, it is especially recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even if one has no assets of favorable austerity, if he nevertheless takes shelter of the Mahatmas who are engaged in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, he is sure to make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manoho Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरे त्विषे नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So this verse is a verse that continues with the topic of the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. We all know what a great devotee Vidura is and how much austerity he endured actually and practiced in his whole lifetime. This verse is very important because it talks to us about a concept which is fundamental to devotional service, and that is austerity. Until we take up some form of austerity, it becomes very hard for us to make advancement in devotional service. This is something that's very integral to performing devotional service in any faith or any path. Even if you are coming from a different faith, you find that all the scriptures agree that austerity and penance is very, very important for the progress of our devotional service. Vidura has already spoken so much and heard so much from Maitreya. And now in the last 2-3 verses, he's expressing his gratitude. He's expressing his gratitude to Maitreya Muni, and he accepts him as spiritual master. This is a very important point. Whoever who gives us transcendental knowledge, they become our spiritual masters. And that's why Prabhupada explained to us that spiritual master does not only mean the spiritual master who initiates you, Diksha, but just as important is the spiritual master who actually gives you instructions on devotional service. So Prabhupada said we can have so many Siksha Gurus, but the important qualification of the Siksha Guru is that Siksha Guru somehow or another must open up your heart and your eyes to transcendental knowledge. That is very important. So Vidura is expressing a very important quality in devotional service, and that quality is the quality of gratitude. And that gratitude becomes a form of austerity also, because in Kali Yuga it is very hard for us to say thank you. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, it's very difficult for us to see something good. When we come to Gauranga Center, our eyes are more accustomed to seeing all the things with a critical eye rather than to see things with a grateful eye. If we find fault with the devotees and we find fault with the center, we find fault with this and find fault with that, there is no way you can have gratitude in your heart. And if there's no gratitude in the heart, then Shastras say it's very difficult for devotional service to take root. So this is a very important point actually. Maitreya was given gratitude by Vidura because Bhagavatam says that he revealed the supreme transcendental knowledge. And this is very nicely explained by Prabhupada here and by Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami says devotees like Maitreya are Mahatmas. This is a very important point. We have a material conception of Mahatma sometimes. In this material world, when we see someone who's performed extraordinary actions, it's possible for us sometimes to think that that person is a great soul. It's all right to call someone a great soul, but by Shastric reference, a Mahatma is actually defined very clearly by Srila Prabhupada. A Mahatma is a pure devotee who engages 100% in the devotional service and in preaching to others about the glories of the Lord. That is the definition of Mahatma according to Shastras. So we have to be also very clear how we view these terms and these descriptions of great personalities. Someone may perform many wonderful material things that will benefit humanity, but all scriptures agree that the greatest benefit to humanity is when one gives the other person the signs of self-realization. That is actually the greatest benefit. Also in this verse, it is very nicely stated that actually when we take association of great devotees, that is the path of liberation. You find in the first line of the purport, Prabhupada makes it clear that if one wants to become liberated from this cycle of birth and death, then all the authorities have recommended one very important thing, that we have to learn to serve the Mahatmas or the Transcendentalists. Why is this so important? When we serve someone, we take association of them. This is the first thing we should understand. When you serve somebody, that is the point where you take association. Otherwise, it is very difficult to take association of someone. If you take association of someone, it means that we are always in a subordinate position. This is the second point to understand. If we believe that we are superior to someone, we cannot serve them. Then whatever we do will be tinged with this material pride. I know better than you, and that's why I'm giving you this. That is not service. Service always means that we are the servants. We are serving someone. It is implied in that we believe that our position is actually lower than the person whom we are serving. If we think that our position is higher than the person that we are serving, then we are pretending to be servants, but actually we think we are masters. This is a very important point. That is why the word Janardana is only declared for Krishna, because one who serves others cannot be in control of anything. And the faster we accept that we are not in control, the better and quicker our devotional service will progress. Sometimes we have this tendency to control, if we can't control somebody, we will control somebody else. And when you want to control someone, what happens in material world is you become a bully actually. You do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. Who are you to say that? Who is anyone to say that? And yet we still do it, you see. Because in our hearts, we don't believe that only Krishna is Janardana. We think we are also Janardanas. But Vidura was such an advanced devotee. And despite his great advanced nature, or not despite, because of his advanced nature, he could become humbler than a blade of grass. He was just as advanced as Maitreya, Prabhupada writes in many purports. And yet, he was ready to control his senses, become austere, and actually fall at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. In 3rd canto, 25th chapter, I think it's the 25th verse, the advantage of serving the great Mahatmas is given actually. And in Bhagavatam there, Kapila Dev tells his mother, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kataha tajjoshanat ashu apavargavatmani shraddharatir bhaktiranukramishyati. So this verse tells us why we should serve the Mahatmas. It is stated that in the association of these Mahatmas, pure devotees, the discussions of pastimes of Krishna, the discussions on the activities of Krishna, what happens when we discuss it amongst Mahatmas or when we hear from Mahatmas? Bhagavatam tells us it becomes very pleasing and satisfying. And this is what we're all running after. Everyone is running after some pleasure and satisfaction. But we don't realize we can only get it when we are serving the pure devotees. When we serve the pure devotees and in their presence we try to discuss or hear about Krishna, that discussion or that hearing becomes very pleasing and very satisfying. To what? To two very important organs, to the ear and then to the heart. Whatever you hear must touch the heart. And whatever that is presented that you hear must touch the heart. If that person can give you something very satisfying to the ear and the heart, then you know that person who is giving you transcendental knowledge is a Mahatma. It's very simple. Unfortunately, because familiarity breeds contempt, it is very hard for us to see a great devotee. Even if they are sitting next to us, we think, nah, we know this person. Very difficult, very difficult. But if someone travels 3,000 kilometers away and you see him over a weekend, that person is Mahatma. Because why? There is no familiarity. And we think, oh, he's such a great soul. But if the same person stayed for 3 months, his Mahatma status drops gradually. Because in our minds, he is becoming one of us, one of us, one of us. See how dangerous this mind is. That is why, actually, this verse is very practical. Whoever you sit with, if discussion of pastimes become pleasing and satisfying, those devotees are greater souls than you. So they must be Mahatmas then. What is the problem? So this is very important. If you cultivate this knowledge of transcendental understanding of Bhagavatam, then this verse tells us, in the association of these great devotees, one becomes very advanced on the path of liberation that Prabhupada is speaking about. And when you become advanced, you become freed. And then the attraction to Krishna, which is a very difficult thing to do, it becomes fixed. At that point of time only, Prabhus and Mataji's, Bhagavatam declares, you see the last line, real devotion and devotional service begins. Up till then, some kind of devotional service is going on, but real devotional service, it's very difficult to get, you see. So those who associate with devotees, that's why here, persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the association of pure devotees. In other words, Shukadeva Goswami, and in this case Vidura, is saying something very important, that if you want to associate with the devotees, we must become austere. Why is austerity so important? We'll understand shortly. But the important thing we should understand at the starting point of the purport is the importance of taking association of devotees. That is why in 3:25-26, immediately after this verse, another very important verse is there. Bhaktya puman jata viraga aindriya drishta shrutan mat rachana nuchintaya chittasya yatho grahane yoga yukto yatishyate rijubi yoga margaye. Marg means the path. So again Kapila Dev is telling his mother, when one is consciously engaged in the association, one is consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees. See how important the word conscious is. We must, when we engage in devotional service, we should understand the goal of life. We should not perform devotional service capriciously and whimsically. When I feel like it, I do it. When I don't feel like it, I don't do it. I like this person, I do devotional service. I don't like that person, I don't do any devotional service. If I like Krishna today, then I perform devotional service. No. So Kapila Dev is saying we must become consciously engaged. Consciously engaged in bhakti, in the association of these great devotees. What will happen in our devotional service? We will gain a distaste for sense gratification. That's the most difficult thing, isn't it, Prabhus Matajis? We want to come out of sense enjoyment, but it's so difficult because we still have a taste for it. Theoretically, we want to come out, but we are still tasting it. So the real trick is, how do we lose taste for that? You know, when you lose taste for some dish that you used to like, automatically you can stop it, isn't it? And very often it's because you just progress to the next stage. You have now tasted something sweeter. Supposing there's a sweet you used to eat when you were young, very sweet, you loved it. But after a while you want to stop it because for whatever reasons. But then the only way, the natural way to stop it is if someone gives you something which is sweeter than that sweet. You know, of course, on a healthy level, all sweets will kill you. But the sweeter sweet tastes sweeter, isn't it? So what happens is you take the sweeter sweet and then you give up the other sweet. So actually, the only way to give up sense enjoyment is when you have a higher taste for devotional service. But how do you get the higher taste for devotional service? You cannot get it artificially, but you can get it in the engagement and the service and the association of the Mahatmas. So Vidura was actually indirectly telling Maitreya that because I've sat down with you to hear Bhagavatam, today by your mercy I'm getting a little bit of taste for devotional service. And this taste for devotional service is not only in this world, it is also in the next world. That's the power of Mahatmas. When you serve the pure devotees, because they constantly think of the activities of the Lord, you also will constantly think of the activities of the Lord. And it is nicely stated in this verse, this process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. There's no other way. Don't need to stand upside down on your head. Don't have to do tapas for 60,000 years. It is the easiest. And when you are situated on that path of devotional service, then what's the last line? Then only we can control the mind. Therefore, bhakti is an automatic way to control the mind. No separate endeavor actually needed. So this is a very important point. That is why we must serve the Mahatmas. That's why we run after the devotees. You know, when you talk about wanting to serve the devotees, no other personality ranks in the mood of serving the devotee except Vritrasur. If you read Vritrasur's most famous 4 prayers in the 6th canto, 11th chapter, I think it is, I think it's from 24, 6, 11, 24. The same mood is expressed by Vritrasur. But you know what's very interesting in Bhagavatam? All the devotees who express the desire to serve the Mahatmas, they themselves are Mahatmas. Have you noticed that? Vidura is a Mahatma, but he can't stop desiring to serve Mahatmas. Vritrasur is Mahatma par excellence, and yet he cannot stop desiring to serve Mahatmas. Shukdev Goswami was a Mahatma, and yet he came to serve Parikshit Maharaj by speaking to him of Bhagavatam. He didn't come to teach Parikshit Maharaj. He came to serve Parikshit Maharaj. Sometimes we think Shukdev Goswami came to teach. He didn't come to teach. His mood was, I am serving a devotee. Parikshit Maharaj did not sit down to listen because he had nothing else to do. He sat down to listen because listening to Bhagavatam is the greatest service you can do to her Mahatma. In fact, by sitting down and hearing Bhagavatam, who are we serving? We're actually serving Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada gave us Bhagavatam. And by sitting down every day and every Sunday coming to hear Bhagavatam, there is no higher and more sweeter service that pleases Srila Prabhupada than the fact that his grand disciples and great-grand disciples, so many years after Prabhupada has left, they are still sitting down and they still want to serve the Mahatmas. This is why a great devotee like Vritrasur is engaged. When Vritrasur was going to be vanquished by Indra, did his mind run hither and thither because he wanted sense gratification and he wanted Swargaloka? No, he did not have that. Why? Because he had austerity. He had the sense control to understand the true meaning of life. That is why in this verse, Vidura is saying how important austerity is in devotional service. And that is why he could pray so nicely. Aham hare tava padaika mula dasanudaso bhavitasmi bhuyaha manasmareta supater gunamse granita karma karotu kayaha. What is the first prayer he ever sings in Bhagavatam? The first prayer he sings is, Krishna, when will I be able to be a servant of your eternal servants? This is the mood of a devotee. This is exactly what Vidura is telling Maitreya, that our mood should be that we want to be in the service of the great transcendentalists. Why do we want to serve the great devotees? Because Vritrasur says they find shelter only at your lotus feet. This is very important. Then he says, O Lord of my life. Krishna is the Lord of everyone's life. And then he says, I pray that I become their servant. This is the mood of a devotee. I pray that I become their servant so that my mind, what does the mind do? The mind will always think of the transcendental attributes of who? Of Krishna. In the association of devotees, one can remember Krishna's attributes. The mind becomes still. Second point he points out, my words, vacha. What will the words do in the association of devotees? My words will always glorify the attributes of Krishna. See? So when we are in the Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, then our words also are not nonsense. We don't, Prabhupada writes in the purport, instead of speaking profitless nonsense of this verse, he says instead of speaking profitless nonsense, things that have no value, devotees, when we come in Sadhu Sangha, we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about fashion, we don't talk about frivolous things. Please, whenever you all come together, please refrain from this frivolous talk. It doesn't help actually. Please, it changes the atmosphere of Gauranga Center completely. It's very important. When you come now to hear about Bhagavatam, it's very nice. But the moment it finishes and your mouth is free, what comes out from the mouth must be Krishna. It should not be control. It should not be dictation. It should not be prajalpa. Very important. So whoever's gathering here, whether you all gather to discuss Krishna, after discussing Krishna, don't go into entertainment mode, which is material entertainment mode. We just talk nonsense. No. If you're coming for Rajbhog, for example, all of you, some devotees come for Rajbhog, please, you just concentrate on Krishna, and after that you sit down and you talk about Krishna. If anyone talks if anyone talks not about Krishna, you can impose a system of fine. At least Gauranga Center will earn some money. So don't speak about anything else except Krishna. This is not a joke. It is reality. If you really become serious, for a while people will say, Prabhu, don't try to be Mahatma, only talk about Krishna. Sometimes people also do that with us. You tell them that it is because we are not Mahatmas, that's why we need to talk more about Krishna. That is why. You turn the argument the other way. It's very hard for people to refute you. This is very important. Otherwise, we will talk nonsense. Our words must glorify Krishna, and our body must always be engaged in the loving service of your Lordship. This is how we serve Krishna, and this is exactly how we serve the Mahatmas. Same way we serve Krishna, we must serve Mahatmas. This is how. And those who want to serve the Mahatmas and the devotees, they become single-minded in devotion. Very important. Because of the austerity of serving Krishna and the devotees, the result is they become very single-minded. And this is evidence in the second verse of Vritasur. Because Vritasur wanted to serve only Krishna and the devotees, what is the result of that is found in the second verse. The second verse shows that because of our desire to serve single-mindedly, our mind becomes very focused and determined only to serve Krishna. We are not swayed by anything else. Na kaprishtam, na chaparameshtam, na sarvabhaumam, na rasadipatyam, na yoga siddhir apunarbhavam vaha, samanjasatva virahaya kangshe. And it's very clear. Krishna, you are the source of all opportunities. Every opportunity to hear from a Mahatma is coming from Krishna. This is very important. I don't desire to enjoy in Dhruvaloka. I don't desire to enjoy Swargaloka and the planets where even Brahma resides. I don't want to be the ruler of these earthly planets or even the lower planetary systems. I'm not interested. I do not even want to desire to become master of all the powers of mystic yoga. No. I don't even want liberation. This is devotee. Why? If I have to give up Krishna's feet, what is the point of all this? Also, if I have to give up the lotus feet of devotees, what is the point of all this? You see? So sometimes we ask ourselves, why I'm not determined and focused in devotional service? Because we are not serving the Mahatmas. We're only serving our senses. We are not thinking that we should come and we should extend beyond ourselves. Devotional service should not be self-centered. It should not be selfish. It should not be, I only look out for my devotional service, to hell with you. No. In fact, we should serve others so that their devotional service grows. Then our devotional service is automatically nourished. This is a very important point. And after he says this point of single-minded determination, Vritasur then touches on the third factor which is very important in devotional service, especially in the service of Mahatmas, and that is self-satisfaction. If we do not become self-satisfied, we cannot serve others. The reason we want others to serve us is because we always want others to satisfy our desires. You see the link? That is why we are not satisfied. But one who serves others forgets to satisfy himself. But Vritasur and Shastras tell us that we should be not satisfied in only one field. That we are not serving the devotees enough. That should be our satisfaction. That should be our dissatisfaction. That dissatisfaction is all right. We should never say, oh, I'm very satisfied in devotional service. 1 round a year, very good. I'm very satisfied coming once a month for Bhagavatam. That's very nice. Once a month I do Mangala Aarti. I'm very satisfied individual. That is a very dangerous way to say that we are satisfied. Here, he says very nicely, 3 situations where all the entities are never satisfied. And he says this is very good for devotional service. Ajata Bhaksha iva mataram kagaha stanyam yatavat shatara shurartaha priyam priyeva vyusitam vishanna manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. How beautiful these verses are. Even if we did not understand the meaning, just chanting them you can understand, isn't it, that there is some potency to them. This is the power of Bhagavatam actually. So then he says very nicely, Krishna, the baby birds, they have not developed their wings. So they always are not satisfied until their mother comes back to feed them. So until they get the sadhu sangha of mother, they are not satisfied. Second point he gives, the calves, they are tied to the ropes, but they are not satisfied. They wait anxiously for the time when they can be reunited with mother for the milking. And up to that point, they are not satisfied. Then only they become satisfied. And the third point, a wife, a chaste wife, she waits for the husband to come back. Not for another man, but only for the husband to satisfy her. And that is what gives her satisfaction. So if you read Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada says the examples given in this regard are most appropriate. Why? Because a pure devotee always yearns to associate personally with the Lord and render service to Him. That is why we serve the pure devotees. See? That is why we serve the pure devotees. And Prabhupada says so nicely, a small baby bird is practically never satisfied except when the mother bird comes to feed it. A small calf is not satisfied unless allowed to suck the milk from the mother's udder. And a chaste, devoted wife whose husband is away from home is never satisfied until she has association of a beloved husband. So therefore, we should not become satisfied that, oh, a little bit of devotional service is enough. No. We should always, constantly, there's no end to service Prabhus and Matajis. And there's no end to serving the Mahatmas. This is a very important point. And so finally he concludes so nicely. And this is very important because this last prayer is the prayer of austerity. And that is exactly what Vidura is also praying to Maitreya actually. Mamotama shloka janeshu sakyam samsara chakre brahmata swakarma bihi tvanmaya yadma majadarageshu asakta chittasya nanata bhuya. Oh my Lord, my Master, I'm wandering throughout this material world as a result of my fruitive activities. So we accept, that the blame is all ours. That acceptance is austerity. Because it is very difficult, for us in this world not to blame ourselves. Generally, the tendency is we blame everyone else. But it takes austerity to look at ourselves and say, it is my fault. Why to blame the wife, the husband, the children? They are behaving in their own way. Why do I get angry with them? Why do I get upset with them? Why? We get upset with them because actually we think we are Janardana. We are controlling them. They should behave in the way we want them to behave. Only we know better. They don't know anything. This is not austerity. This is lack of austerity. So this is very important. Krishna, Vritasur is saying that I am traveling in this world because of my own fruitive activities. Because I have lived my life full of profit. Now he wants something. I only want friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. That is what we are running after. That is what Vidura wants from Maitreya. He just wants friendship. Friendship does not mean that we treat someone with disdain. Friendship means we treat that person with the greatest of respect. That is actually actual genuine friendship. Two good friends always have the highest respect for each other. Always. And a genuine friend always thinks that that friend is a better friend to me than I am to him. This is mood of Vritasur. So he says, I seek friendship in the association of your pious, enlightened devotees. They are Mahatmas. He prays that his attachment to the body, the wife, the children and home, it is continuing by the spell of external energy. Again, he understands why he is attached to this world. But his prayer is that I wish to be attached to them no longer. When we are not attached to something, we actually serve it better. Have you realized that? When you are not materially attached to something or someone, you actually serve them better. When you are attached to them and you serve them, that is not service. That is actually you serving your mind because you want them to gratify your senses. That attachment doesn't bring austerity and it doesn't bring service. But when we are not attached to someone because we know they belong to Krishna and they don't belong to us, then how much more we will serve them because they are coming from Krishna. You see? So there is nothing wrong with becoming detached from that angle. Sometimes people think, oh my God, this is a prayer that's very dangerous. It means now I'll slowly become yogi, in the house, I will stay alone, I will not talk to wife, husband, children. No, that's not what it means. It means we don't control them thinking that they belong to us. We serve them. And that is why he says, let my mind, my consciousness and everything I have be attached only to you. And in today's world, that is also an austerity, isn't it? It's a real austerity. So this is very important because the first half of the verse and the purport speaks about the greatness of Mahatma. And Vidura surrendered to this Mahatma. How did he do it? He did it by the principles of Bhagavatam, submission and service. When we submit ourselves and we serve someone, then that austerity gives us taste for Krishna consciousness. It's a very important thing. That is why it is nicely stated in 1.2.16 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is a very important verse for us to remember. Shushroshoho Shraddha Dhanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punya Tirtha Nisevanat. And what does Shukadev Goswami say in this very important verse? He says that if you serve, Suta Goswami says this, if you serve those great devotees who are completely free from all vice, great service is done. So if you want to serve someone and you understand what is really great service, serve the devotees who have no vice. And when you serve them, by such service, what happens to us? We gain affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Ruchihi. The only way to get taste is by service. But you cannot perform service until you become austere. This is the key. That is why Vidura is saying here, persons whose austerity is meager. Meager means very little, swalpa, very small. If we don't practice enough austerity, then what happens is we can hardly obtain the mercy, or rather hardly obtain the service of the devotees. In other words, we will not be able to serve very nicely until we become austere. So we must see the link between why he says service and why austerity is needed for service. And this is very nicely elaborated, by Krishna himself in the 10th canto. In 10th canto, 3rd chapter, in the purport of 34 and 35th verse, it is very nicely stated by Krishna. The context to this is very important. Krishna had just come into this world and he was speaking to Vasudev and Devaki Mata. And he's remembering that not only were they his parents now, but as Prishni and Sutapa, I think, yes, Prishni and Sutapa, right? In previous life also, they were also parents of Krishna when Krishna came into this world. So there, very nicely in the translation, Krishna is expressing this point. He says, my dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat and severe cold, suffering all kinds of inconvenience according to the different seasons. By practicing pranayama to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleansed from your mind all dirty things. This was, of course, not in Kali Yuga. That is why, all the other meditational activities were recommended then. Today, we cannot do any of this, isn't it? Anyone, likes to, supposing we tell you now, no packets, go outside and take dry leaf and eat. I don't think you'll come back next week, At least there must be some prasadam, isn't it? So we may say we are austere, but actually it's very difficult to be austere. If supposing someone offers prasadam to Krishna and the prasadam comes and there's no salt, our tongue rebels. Immediately we say, Prabhu, no salt. But Jagannath just ate it, isn't it, without salt? He can adjust it. But in our minds, we can't adjust, you see, because we have no austerity. We say we have austerity, but actually we have no austerity. So that is why Krishna was saying at that time they could do all these things. But austerity means, as Krishna says here, all dirty things leave us. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful mind. When we control our senses for the pleasure of Krishna and the devotees, what is the result? Our mind is peaceful. So every time your mind is agitated, it's very simple. There's only one reason. The reason is we have not performed austerity to please the devotees. We are still caught in the sense gratification. That is why our minds are not very peaceful. And it is nicely stated in the purport. In the purport, Prabhupada says that Devaki and Vasudev, they did not obtain Krishna just by a little bit of austerity here and there. No, they performed severe penances and austerity. Why? Because Prabhupada quotes a very important verse from 551 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this he quotes many, many times. Nayam deho deha bhajam riloke Kastan kamam arhate vidbujam ye tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam sudyed yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. So Prabhupada often quoted the third line of this verse, tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam. And he says very nicely that actually the goal of human life is to undergo austerity. Very important point. Rishabhdev tells his sons, and this is quoted by Prabhupada in this particular verse. And he says that the entire life, the goal of the entire life is we perform austerity. Why? Not for the sake of performing it, but to control our senses for the pleasure of Krishna. This is very important. So it is not that controlling our senses makes us morose or sad. No, it doesn't. In fact, in 551, it is very nicely stated that this human life is an opportunity not to engage in the sense gratification of the animals. The hogs only like stool. If we do not have a higher purpose in life, we are no better off than hogs. We're just deluxe version of hogs, Hog goes to sleep, we sleep. Our bed looks nicer than the hog. Hog wife for the hog is very beautiful. Our wives and husbands are very beautiful and handsome. But for the hog, our wives and husbands look very ugly. So in that way, we are just living like hogs. But the idea is that, we think we are actually very well situated. So it is nicely stated by Rishabhdev that one should engage in penance and austerity. Penance and austerity are about the same thing. They both mean that you must withdraw your senses from sense gratification and use it for Krishna. That is the definition of austerity. Not that we wake up at 4:30, oh, I woke up, then don't do Mangalarti. What's the point? Some people wake up and they become very, very attached to austerity. But the purpose of Mangalarti is forgotten. Or sometimes we chant 64 rounds. But the reason why we chant 64 rounds is so that in our mind we become very proud that we are chanting 64 rounds. What is the point? So you see, austerity itself is not needed. But austerity, for us to remember Krishna, is the way of human life. So this is a very important point that we should not forget. And that is why it is nicely stated here that when we want to take up austerity, Prabhupada makes it very clear that it becomes the purpose of human life. Now, what is also very important is that we don't have to go very far to understand what austerity means. Because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and we'll spend the last few minutes of this time together on what Krishna speaks about as austerity. In the 17th chapter, between verses 14, 15 and 16, austerity is very clearly explained by Krishna. We don't have to go anywhere to understand austerity. If we just follow these 3 verses and we follow what Prabhupada says in the purport, if we study them very closely and we act on them, then our austerity will never be meager. And if our austerity is not meager, then by Krishna's mercy we can serve the Mahatmas. It's very important. So in 1714, Krishna says very nicely, and I think Dinawasa Prabhu is putting up the verse, you will see that there are 3 different kinds of austerity that we must perform. Austerity of body, austerity of speech, and austerity of mind. In 1714, Krishna tells Arjuna, what does it mean to be austere in the body? When we are austere in the body, it means basically that we worship the Supreme Lord and we respect the Brahmanas, spiritual masters, superiors like our fathers and mothers. And we do this in the spirit of 4 very important qualities. We do it in the spirit of cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. It's very important. So if we want to become austere, the first thing Prabhupada says in the purport is that we must learn to offer respect to our superiors. That is an austerity. Because in this material world, it's very hard for us to respect anyone. Very difficult. And you cannot become austere in life. You cannot control the mind until we offer respects. So you see, Bhagavatam is not just in the sky. It's not talking about some leelas, It is talking about how we change the values in our life. Can any system in this world, whether they believe in God or not believe in God, refute the statement from Bhagavad Gita? That actually it is so important for us to offer proper respects to Krishna, to the devotees. See, even the parents, sometimes when we take up Krishna consciousness, we think our parents they're all in Maya. So many times, devotees take up Krishna consciousness, they go back to meet their parents, they preach to them and say, oh, you're both in Maya. They turn to their family and they say, you're all in Maya. But when we talk like that, we forget that we are in Maya. They are very good, but we are in Maya. So we must learn to offer respect to everyone. That is very important. And offering respect to a friend is very easy. Where's the fun of it? But the real devotees of the Lord, like Yudhishthir Maharaj, for example, he offered respects to those whom he did not even consider. Of course, he considered everyone to be friend. But even those who were inimical of him, he was offering respects to them. This is a very important point. It is easy to offer respects to those who like you, or who pamper you, or who praise you. But it's very difficult to offer respects to those who criticize you, who find fault in you. That offering of genuine respect is the way to increase austerity. And that is why it is very important here. The second point in 1714 is actually about cleansing. And this cleansing, Prabhupada does not mince his words here. How we control the purity of the mind eventually will become the way to control the purity of the body. It's very important. We should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunctions. And if we are performing what we call unhealthy and unclean things in the form of activities, they will catch us eventually. They will catch us. Prabhupada says, for example, celibacy is regulating your physical relations within the institution of marriage. The moment we do anything outside the institution of marriage, we may justify it, but Krishna watches and the consequences will come. We have to be prepared. We cannot run away from it because it is Shastra. This is a very important thing. When we accept this way of living, that becomes our austerity. You see the point? That becomes our austerity. So cleanliness is not just the body, but it is also our activities. And the final point that is stated here is if we want austerity of the body, we should translate it by becoming simple in our behavior. Very nicely Prabhupada says, the more simple we are, the less needs we have. The less needs we have, the more austere we become. You see the connection? So when we simplify our existence, don't complicate it, then you'll find austerity of the body is achievable. The second point that Krishna brings up is austerity of the mind. Austerity of speech. 1715. Austerity of speech is also very important. Krishna tells Arjuna, when one becomes austere in speech, what does it mean? It means that when we speak our words, we should speak truth. We should then also be pleasing. And whatever we speak should be beneficial. So there are three things we must do before we open our mouth. Before we say anything to someone, you should ask yourself, according to Bhagavad Gita, is what I'm speaking, first of all, the truth? Or is it speculation? Half the time what we speak is speculation, frankly. It is not truth. I think. If you think, then it's speculation, isn't it? Because we don't speak Shastra. So very often it's I think. That kind of thinking, better don't speak. That is austerity of speech. So if something is the truth, you speak it. But now the second thing is very important. Even if it is truth, you should speak it in a pleasing manner. This one is difficult, isn't it? Because very often we say, oh, truth is unpalatable. I'll just tell it to you as it is. Prabhu, you're useless. I'm being very, very truthful. Really? Are we really being truthful? Or are we being judgmental? There's a big difference, being critical and saying, oh, it is the truth. It is the truth. No. Amog, came up to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and actually declared that Mahaprabhu is actually sense gratifier because he's eating more than a sannyasi should eat. In his mind, he was speaking truth. But really, is it truth? We should ask ourselves, touch the heart. Was he really speaking the truth? He was not speaking truth because he was speaking on the basis of envy. So one can manipulate truth with intention. And that is very dangerous, very dangerous. And that is what happened with Amog. But see how Mahaprabhu received it. Mahaprabhu received it by saying, well, he has a point. I'm eating more than I should. So, for us not to become disturbed by this, we also must be austere. We must be austere to accept the criticisms. That is also austerity. You see? So austerity has to be in every junction of our spiritual life. And Mahaprabhu demonstrated it. So we should speak something if it is truth. And how should we present it? We should present it in a palatable or pleasing manner. And the third thing we should understand is it beneficial for that person? If it benefits the person spiritually, and that is the only reason why we speak something, because it benefits the person spiritually. If it does, then we are austere. But if it agitates the person, and if it is just agitating because we are actually criticizing them, then as Prabhupada writes in the purport, one should not speak in a way to agitate the minds of others. Please. This is very important, Prabhus and Matajis. Very often, many people become disillusioned in devotional service because when devotees speak to them, they are so harsh. In the 16th chapter, 4th verse, you don't have to put it there, Prabhu, we'll stick to it. There is one word that is used to describe demoniac behavior, parusham. Parusham means harsh. When we use harsh words on devotees, right, or on living entities, we don't realize it is demonic nature. It is a symptom of our demonic nature. The only person who can use harsh words, Prabhupada writes actually, is one who is a teacher. He must speak the truth, and sometimes as guru he must cut. But because he's in that capacity, he's given the adhikar to do that. But if we are not in that capacity, then Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear that we should be very careful in the austerity of our speech. You know, Vidura came back in the 13th chapter to see Dhritarashtra. And when he came back, actually, he had terrible news with him. What was the news? The news was actually that that Krishna had left the world. It was the most unpalatable news. But when he came back, he saw the Pandavas were already distressed. Distressed, first of all, because of the terrible war of Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra looked very sad. Gandhari looked very sad. Yudhishthira was filled with guilt. And all the terrible omens were coming. And they were all afraid because they had not heard about Krishna for such a long time. So they were already in difficult situation. And Bhagavatam tells us, if you have time, you should look 1:13:13. 1:13:13 of Bhagavatam is very important verse to describe austerity of speech. Because there, it is nicely stated that Vidura is known as compassionate. Very important point. He is known as compassionate. Sa karunaha. Not just karuna, but sa karunaha. Now in that verse, he is described as sa karunaha. Compassionate Vidura. And he is Mahatma, by the way. And here he is talking to Maitreya and he is saying, you are Mahatma. See how great the Mahatmas are. So Mahatma Vidura came back to the palace, but he could not bear to see that the Pandavas were distressed at any time. This is mood of a devotee. We are not in the business of disturbing others. Please check your tongue. Think 100 times before you speak to a devotee so that you don't disturb them. This is very important. And so what did he do? He did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident, the incident of Krishna leaving. Because, why? Because calamities come of their own accord. We are going to suffer anyway. Why should, someone is going to suffer anyway, why should we add on to that suffering? They will come of their own accord, not that we wish them ill, but calamities come. And look at Prabhupada's super excellent purport. According to Niti Sastra, civic laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. Why? Because distress comes upon us in its own way. Everyone here has distress. Why aggravate it by propaganda? Have you heard of this term we say, poking? You've met some people, they'll say, oh, Prabhu, why are you looking like this today? Poking, You already know you look bad. Or you may feel, something is wrong. Then someone comes and says, oh, why are you like this? Oh, I thought you did that. We've heard this, right? This is provoking. That kind of language is not austere language. Sometimes we don't say directly, but indirectly we try to hit people. This is all very dangerous, you see. Like Amog, Amog did not speak directly to Mahaprabhu. He just shouted, oh, someone is behaving like sannyasi, but he's eating food fit for an emperor. That is poking. So this tongue is very dangerous. How to become a devotee if we behave this way? So that's why we don't aggravate. Compassion is the next door neighbor to austerity. Very important. Until you become austere in speech, body and mind, it's very hard to be compassionate actually. Very hard to be compassionate. That's why Vidura was so beloved. It is almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Therefore, he purposefully refrained from it. If I was a lawyer, I'll tell you, but Prabhu, non-disclosure of information is illegal. In this material world, we'll say, why didn't you tell me this earlier? And sometimes we get upset with people, oh, you held back information. But the great Mahatmas know when to reveal what. And we must have faith in those devotees, that they don't want to hurt us. This is a very important point. So that is why Vidura, it's so interesting that Vidura was glorified in 1:13:13, and he's actually speaking glorifying Maitreya. See the greatness of Vidura. So that is the austerity of speech that we must understand. And that is why Prabhupada also says, and this is another important part of austerity. Austerity here is also given in the word, what is that word? No, it's not here. I'll find it. It is when we are silent, maunam. When we are silent, it doesn't mean we don't speak. Bhagavatam says when we are silent, it means we only speak of Krishna. That is austerity. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that when we discuss Krishna consciousness, the process of speaking in spiritual circles is what? Is to say something upheld by scriptures. It is in 17:15. Upheld by scriptures. And then Prabhupada says a very nice point. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he's saying. Do not take anything from the sky and just speak. Sometimes devotees come up with all kinds of concoctions about Shastra. It's not Shastric. They say, no, you should do this. But where is it stated in Shastra? They cannot tell you. But I'm doing it because some other blind man showed it to me and I'm following that also. Did Prabhupada give it to us? During Prabhupada's time, did he do something? Is it given by our authorities? Is it written? Is it codified? Is it stated? Otherwise, don't do it. This is very important. Don't add things into an area as spiritual and pure as this. It's very important. Very important. We are followers of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, as a very simple example, only observe Ekadashi fast for 1 or 2 festivals. In the other traditional sampradayas, they do Ekadashi for all festivals. But he is our father. So why we can't follow our father? Why must we over the years add on and add on and add on in the name of austerity? But this is monkey renunciation. Prabhupada calls this Markatta Vairagya. We just imitate someone somewhere, we claim it is austerity, but the real austerity is following the instructions of the Acharya, which is what we don't want to do. You see? Because we want to follow our own mind. So that brings us to the last austerity, austerity of the mind. 17:16. It's very important. Krishna makes it very clear here that if we want to become austere, then this mind has to be controlled. And how do we do it? Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence. If we cultivate all of this in our lives, then our mind becomes austere. And Prabhupada makes it very clear here in the purport. If you want to make the mind austere, please detach it from sense gratification. Very, very important. Just detach it from sense gratification. And how do you do that? It must be trained for thinking of doing good for others. Such a nice point. Not, I don't do this, don't do that. Just train the mind in a positive way. Sometimes we always are so negative. Stop this, stop that, stop this, stop that. No, Krishna consciousness is very proactive, it's very dynamic. Prabhupada says, if you want to really control your mind, just go out there and do good to others. Offer respects to them, serve them, give them Krishna. This way, our mind automatically becomes what we call, what is the word here? Maunam. Maunam means with gravity. Gravity of thought comes in serving others. In this way, we will not deviate from Krishna consciousness. It's very simple, very straightforward. If you want to purify your nature, again be proactive. Don't stop doing things. Just perform Krishna conscious activities. This is the way to do it. And how must we do this? By becoming devoid of duplicity. You see it in the purport. Prabhupada says, become devoid of duplicity. Do not do it because there is a motive. Do not do one thing for someone and the other thing for someone. Oh, you are my friend, I treat you very nicely. You are my enemy, I won't even look at you. Devotees don't behave that way. For devotee, everyone is special to Krishna. Of course, we don't go and hug a tiger and say, oh, you're very special to Krishna. That is foolishness, by the way. But austerity means that we see the hand of Krishna in all the challenges of life. That is austerity. So you see how practical it is. Until we become self-satisfied, we cannot become austere. Until we serve others, we cannot control sense gratification. And if we want to do good for others, automatically it purifies ourselves. And Prabhupada writes so nicely here, if you want to divert the mind from sense gratification, just come and listen to the stories from Puranas. You see it there in the purport? That means come and listen to Bhagavatam. There's so much of beautiful stories and episodes in Bhagavatam, Krishna book, that even if your mind wants to run away, let it run away with Krishna. In Kirtan, let it run away with the holy name. And in the service of devotees, let it run away by your service. This is austerity. But now, after all the points that Vidura has said to Maitreya, that if your austerity is meager, you cannot serve the Mahatmas, Prabhupada, at the end of today's purport, he debunks that theory. That's the interesting thing about Prabhupada. You know, he debunks that theory. Because at the end of it, if you see the purport, he says something very interesting. He says, even if one has no assets for favorable austerity, if he nevertheless takes shelter of the Mahatmas, who are engaged in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, he is sure to make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. So he's coming back again in one full circle. He says austerities are needed to serve the Mahatmas. And Mahatma Vidura also confirms that. But then Prabhupada says devotees are so kind that even if you're not austere, they are still so merciful. They will still give you sadhu sangha. You just go and take shelter of these great devotees. And even if you're not austere, even if you're full of faults, just by serving them, their greatness and purity will purify you. And you will automatically become austere. That is why our entire devotion is based on devotional service. You notice that? Prabhupada never translated bhakti as devotion. Devotion implies you sit there and you have a feeling. But devotional service takes you one step further. After you feel, you must act on it. And that is the essence of devotional service. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Srila Gurudev ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande. I can take a question or two if devotees have them. I think we have the mic. Anyone? Yes, Prabhu. Sorry, I'll just see if I can. Oh, you may be a little far. Would you mind, Prabhu? How do we? Okay. Sorry, Prabhu, I'm because this it makes it a bit difficult for me to hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhu.
In austerity of speech, in the outside world, when we are working or even in our corporate lives, we give feedback to people, and sometimes that feedback can be critical, so it's not accepted by another person. The person can get educated. How do you deal with that?
Very nice point. You know, especially in our working lives, a lot of our job scope may involve us giving feedback to our teams. And if we want to do that, then invariably when you give feedback, you have to tell the truth. That's the nature of feedback. And yet Krishna is saying here that if you have austerity of speech, then as far as possible, we should speak in such a way not to cause distress to others. It has to be, this point that Krishna states, has to be balanced also with the point that is given just earlier in the purports of the austerity. That if someone is in a position, Prabhu, where it is by his nature or by the job that he's doing, like a teacher to a student, where he has to give honest feedback, then that is an exception to the rule. Because you have the adhikar to actually provide someone with something which may not be very palatable, but which is very necessary. But you're not doing it because you have a motive. You're not doing it because you hate the person. You're not doing it, because it's I'm one up and you're down. If all those motives are not in our heart, and if we try our very best to give sincere feedback, even in that position from my experience, feedback can be given in a gentlemanly fashion. It can be firm sometimes because someone may push back, but we have to give the feedback. But even if the person walks away feeling a bit distressed, we also know from our experience that when we give it without motive and we treat them just as well after the feedback, persons become less agitated because they also begin to realize that there was nothing personal that was in the feedback. It was just part of our work. I think how a devotee behaves in the material world, so to speak, using this principle, that our heart does not hold anything against them. The beauty of living beings is that Krishna is in the heart of everyone. And he is always the person who gives us intuition. Even the most difficult person can understand after a while that we mean them well. And I think if we keep to that mood and always have a prayerful attitude to Krishna before we give feedback to others, that Krishna, I have to do this, but please provide me an austerity of speech in such a way that whatever I put forward, even though it's unpalatable, will be accepted because my heart is clear on this. Krishna will help us, Prabhu. I hope that's useful. But it's a very good point because it's something we have to keep doing. And that's what parents have to do with children. We have to remain respectful. And we also have to remain respectful even when we have to speak to those who may be superiors to us in terms of age. But we must tell them something about it. So, because we are in the material world, we cannot completely cut off the fact that we will not give distress to others, but we should try very hard to minimize that. Is that helpful, Prabhu? Anyone else? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So, there was one purport where you shared where Prabhupada is saying about that miseries come by its own accord, and why should we add to that propaganda?
1:13:13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the word propaganda used is very significant, I think, because in the world it's very relevant because in this world of social media, where people when which they do not like or whatever, they do not convey one-to-one, but they go on the social media and convey to everyone.
Yeah.
So how do we keep ourselves from that kind of propaganda?
Very good point, Prabhu. I think you've made Bhagavad Gita even more relevant. I'm sure Krishna would have thought, that we'll have Facebook and everything else. After all, he sees past, present and future. But I think the best way to do that is simply not to broadcast. There's no necessity for us to broadcast matters which are unpalatable. Sometimes in the name of expressing our opinion, we want the whole world to hear it. But frankly speaking, what purpose does it do? Does it educate someone? Does it help someone in their spiritual life? If it does, then please do it, but that will become preaching, which is generally positive. So actually, frankly speaking, Prabhupada used the word profitless in this purport, right, Prabhu? In this purport, he said the word profitless. So frankly, we save so much time and we save other people's time. If they don't read our blog or something that we are sharing which actually has nothing to do with Krishna, then we are not wasting others' time also. If we have an incident that we are very sad about, well, today it has become, it seems to be very common for us to share it with the world. But if you are sharing it with the world because I want to tell everyone, oh, Kali Yuga is full of misery, then you can try, but you make others more miserable also. So maybe it's just better for us to share about Krishna. That is the best propaganda we can do. Everything else, must have some privacy. And if we are in difficulty, then we should sit down and speak to devotees confidentially. That's why Rupa Goswami says so much confidentiality between devotees in relationship is the essence of Vaishnava relationship. It flies against the principle of what is today very current in terms of social media. Is that helpful, Prabhu? Thank you. Anything else? Dinabandhu Prabhu, you had something. Maybe this will be the last. Haribol.
So this verse which you quoted, I think in one of the purports, Nanaka Prishtam, that is the third verse.
Nanaka Prishtam, yes.
So 10, 16, 37 is also similar.
Oh yeah, that's also the yeah.
Nagapatni.
Yes, it starts with that, isn't it, Prabhu?
In fact, the
First three lines are identical, then the last line only is different.
Yeah, so I mean, but I think that is like in third person, and this is like Vikrasur telling about himself.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you can highlight some similarities or like, I mean, these two verses, because it's striking that, you know, they're exactly the same.
Where is the other verse? I forget the citation.
10, 16, 37.
Okay, I don't have it here, but let me have a look and see whether I can get it. 10,
16, 37.
1 minute. 10, 16,
37.
37. Yes, so nice. Nanakaprishtam nacha sarva bhaumam na parameshtam narasadhipatyam na yoga siddhi rapunar bhavam va vanchanti yat padaraja prapannaha. Those who have attained the dust of your lotus feet never hanker for the kingship of heaven, limitless sovereignty, the position of Brahma, or rulership over the earth. They are not interested even in the perfections of yoga or in liberation itself. And this is in the chapter 16, right, Prabhu?
Yes, 16.
And 16, what is it titled? I'm just looking at the title. It's Krishna chastising, right? Kaliya. Yes. So I think this is a prayer of the Nagapatnis? It is the prayer of the Nagapatnis. So just a very quick context. The Nagapatnis prayed very hard for Kaliya's deliverance. And the reason why they prayed, because Kaliya was so envious of Krishna that for years and years and years he could not surrender to the Lord. The Nagapatnis, on the other hand, were completely surrendered servants to the Lord. And when finally Kaliya was subdued, there was a high chance that he would be killed. Because in that dance that Krishna was doing, all the poison was coming out and his life air was about to come out. At that point of time, the Nagapatnis start chanting. And this prayer is very important because in this prayer, they are affirming their single-minded devotion to Krishna. And it is also very important, Prabhu, because the prayer actually tells us that the purpose of their prayer is actually not for anything material. And they did not want to deliver Kaliya because he was their husband. This is a very important point. Just like Vritasur also wants to be detached from his family, wife, children, not in the spirit of leaving them, but in the spirit of serving them. The Nagapatnis prayed to Krishna that they are not interested in having Kaliya for sense gratification as a husband. But they prayed very hard that somehow or another Krishna should deliver him and that he should become a spiritual person or a devotee. They had no motive other than to pray for his deliverance. And that is the same mood that Vritasur also displays. That if I cannot have an opportunity to serve you, then nanaka prishtam, nachaparameshtam, nasarva bhavanam, all these things I don't want. So the Nagapatni's prayer is that we don't want anything, but you just save him and deliver him. And in doing so, let it not be mistaken that they were doing it because they were attached to their husbands, like normal wives and husbands are. But actually they did it because they had the austerity of their speech, mind, as well as their body, so that they can actually offer respects to Krishna, and they wanted their husband to become a devotee. So in that sense, there's a lot of similarities in their prayer. And so when we pray for someone, we should also be very clear that our purpose for praying for them is not because they are attached to us or because we get something from them. No. Our purpose for prayer for them is that they should be delivered from this material cycle. Then we become austere, Prabhu. Otherwise, we become attached to the person also. Is that helpful? Thank you for highlighting that, Prabhu. Thank you for your time, Prabhus and Matajis. Very happy to see you come for Bhagavatam. Be peaceful in your devotional service. And I hope, this beautiful purport shines a light on how deep and powerful and needed is austerity. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Gurudev ki, Ananta Kori Vaishnavrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So they can leave, Prabhu, now? Okay, fine. You can just go down and